Robert, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk and the Fringe Radio Show.
Hey, thank you, Pat. Thanks for having me aboard with you this evening. That was an interesting guest you had earlier. I really enjoyed hearing her speak about her experiences and the great work she's done.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, and of course, her aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, talk about kicking things off with abductions in the early 60s. Like I said, to back then to discuss some of those topics, even to come forward in any way, had to be an adventure for those folks.
Oh, yeah, it was an amazing time. And, I appreciate you telling people about some of the things that I've worked on and the films and things and books and that type of thing. But one of the things I want to do this evening is talk with you and your audience a little bit about, how much proof is enough proof. Because, it seems like so much of our time is spent preaching to the choir.
Right.
And, there's just so many things that are going on in the world. And I heard you mention just a moment ago on one of your preplayed things that you put on Prepare for the Worst. What was that about?
That's PrepperCon. That's a local event that's coming up at the end of this month here in town. They're doing a kind of a preparedness expo. They're going to have guest speakers brought in from all over the country. They've got a handful of celebrities from Sci-Fi Channel, from AMC's Walking Dead. They've got some celebrities coming in. So it's going to just be a fun 2-day event and talk about, if things go to heck in a handbag, how so many of us, and I include myself in that, how are we going to survive? Everybody thinks day to day things are just fine, but what if it's some sort of a catastrophe, the power grid goes down, or a major earthquake, or whatever it may be. So I think it's going to be not only educational, but they're making it a lot of fun.
Yeah, that really leads into how I got involved in this whole field, and part of the philosophy and why we just keep going at it and keep trying to get the word out through the different books and films that we do. And in the early 60s, I was a life insurance salesman selling death in Portland, Oregon. And I made enough money and got bored enough that one day I decided to build a ship and actually sail it from Portland, Oregon to Hawaii. And I lived there for a couple of years. And during the time that I was in Hawaii, I decided I didn't want to sail around the world. I wanted to discover who I was and why I was on this planet. And I had an amazing encounter. Once I had decided to sell the boat sold to the first person that came down the dock. And the morning I was supposed to deliver it, I got up very, very early, about 4 o'clock in the morning, and got coffee on and got dressed, went back to my bunk and threw open the hatch that was above my double bunk, looking at the beautiful sky from Ala Yacht Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii. And all of a sudden, the most incredible energy filled the stateroom. And I'm going to go do this kind of short. An incredible woman materialized in the stateroom next to me. And it was the most incredible experience that I've ever had in my life, because at first I thought I was dreaming. It wasn't possible. And the energy in the room was so incredible. It was, the only way I can describe it is that we've all had our finger in like a 110 light socket.
Right.
Had a little tingle, but this was like 440, only it was almost orgasmic. And I was invited to go to a briefing. And at that briefing, I actually went to the planet Jupiter, and there were about another 50 people there at the briefing. And it was the most incredible experience, because while I was there, I was actually shown, I guess it would be either, some people might call it the whole track, other people might call it being able to see into the future, but I was shown a scenario of what the possible ramifications of us not changing our future could be on this planet. And it included prepare for the worst. I mean, in the most dramatic terms, the earth changes, the cataclysms, the loss of life, the destruction of the grid, the absolute devastation to this planet and to the people that were on the planet, unless we personally take responsibility and do something to help make the planet a better place to be. And since that time, I've written books about it, and one of the things we did is we did a film which was called Fast Walkers, which won the People's Choice and the EB Award at the Congress there. And over 3 million people illegally downloaded that off of YouTube and Google. Instead of paying 50 cents or $1, they chose to steal it. But the film still went on to do quite well, and it was given to every single person in the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. It was given to the presidential staff. It was given to the entire Canadian Parliament, and it's been a very successful film, and it's out there. But essentially, you know, I guess what I'm saying is there's so much proof. In Fast Walkers, we interviewed about 40 or 50 contactees and experiencers from around the world and had them tell their story. And unfortunately, in a 90-minute film, you could only give, you know, 25 people a couple of minutes apiece.
Right,
so,
right.
You know, so I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's available. It's out there. And it's also on Netflix and different places. But I think we've got the proof, and you know, if people go to timestreampictures.com, they can see a number of books and a number of videos and films and things that we've worked on and we're doing. So I'm wide open for your questions, Pat.
Well, I love talking about your work. I mean, you've done so many you've done so many different things. The research you do, I mean, to pull these films together has got to be a monumental effort. I know what it takes to get to get people on the show to interview them. And you've looking at your website, you've interviewed so many, you know, the top leading ufologists out there.
Yeah, we put 2 years into the creation of the film Fast Walkers. And, you know, the nice thing about it, Pat, was that we were able to interview these people, and we actually recorded a lot more than just a couple of minutes with each person. And that led us to develop a series, like a library volume series called Fast Walkers Open Files, where we actually take and allow these incredible individuals to go ahead and express their viewpoint. And all of the people, when they were interviewed, and like you say, the top people in the world, you know, we missed a few, but we got most of them. They didn't know that I'd ever had an experience. So they weren't leaning one way or the other. They weren't having to defend their position. And what we are able to do with Fast Walkers Open File series is we're able to put 2 or 3 of them together on a DVD, and they're like, it's like having them there in your front room. And they have some wonderful things, amazing things to tell people about not only what they've experienced in their own life, but also their research. And, you know, there's a long list of them, and they're on the website. If people go to those pages, they can see those. And then a company out of Hollywood, Reality Entertainment, decided they wanted to take some of those interviews and edit them and come out with what was called the UFO Chronicles series. So that's also in release. And I think there's 6 volumes out now, and then 2 or 3 more are coming out in the next 4 or 5 months. But that, you know, it's been a wonderful, amazing experience. But one thing is I hear a lot of talk about people who have interviewed people and they haven't personally experienced things. You know, they aren't an experiencer themselves. And I think that it's really critical. Like the start team, the MUFON start team was brought up. And Antonio Paris recently did an event where I was going to be on the show with them and do a debate about physical proof. And I think we've got so much proof, and if a person just goes back and they just start taking a look at how much does it take to convince you that there's a cover-up, how much does it take? Like, just look at chemtrails. Look what's being done to the entire planet every day worldwide, and people sit back and it's like they don't even see it. So how can you expect a cover-up of the magnitude of the UFO field to ever be disclosed? And, you know, I know Steve Bassett, and I love him like a brother, and I support him, and he's been, you know, to all of our events, and he's an amazing guy. And so it's everybody that's out there working and trying to disclose this, people like yourself and shows like yourself. But it's time, you know, people have got to do more than just talk about it. They've got to get ready for the change in their life that's coming down. And I really believe that we're going to face major survival changes. And that's what we begin to get ready for. And both Leslie Mitt, who's my fiance and my co-producer, and myself, you know, we're planting our gardens. We're doing everything we can to be ready, you know, if things do get worse. And at the same time, we know that the extraterrestrial presence is real. And it has been real for thousands of years. And the research that we began to do on the DVD about Hitler in Argentina just opened the barn doors on the level of cover-up and lies that the government tells the people of the United States and the world, for that matter, about the way things really are. So,
well, I'd like to talk about that, and also talk about the talk about your book with is it Leslie Mitz? Is that correct?
Yes, and we didn't think that Leslie would be able to be available, but she is here this evening. And when we start talking about the Lycandroids book,
great. I actually reached out to Leslie some time ago, and I know she's very, very busy. But yeah, would love to get her. Would love to get her on. You want to take Bob? You want to take a call? We got a caller on hold for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, hold on. Caller, good evening. Welcome to K Talk. You're on with Robert D. Miles.
Good evening, Pat. It's Bill in New York again. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Billy, how are you?
Good. Robert, before I ask you about specifically about Safe Space and some of the projects that you're involved with there, you mentioned about the craft, and you bought it, and you went to some type of briefing with 50 other guests. Did you recognize any of the other guests that were there, and what exactly was said at that briefing, and what type of entities were they?
Okay, the individuals, and I would have to call them very humanoid, very human-like, and it's my contention, and long has been, that the outer planets and the planets in this solar system are inhabited, and they are inhabited with many human-type individuals and civilizations, and that NASA and everything we've been told about our local solar system is a lie. And that what I essentially was given in terms of a visual experience, it was, honest to heavens, it was like I was actually there watching the planet going through convulsions, both earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricane, grid failure, and the book Safe Space, which I wrote actually in 1971, was based on that experience. And then Columbia Pictures bought that from me, and for 2 years we worked with Columbia with a budget of $3 million, and that was 4 years before Star Wars. Star Wars was done for 1.7, but the script went through 6 different scripts and it never came out as a picture. But the whole safe space story and the safe space experience and the lesson is that we have the ability to change the future of our world, and if we don't, it's going to be disastrous for all of us. And it's a pre-planned thing from my point of view and the research that myself and Leslie has done. This is not an accident. This is Agenda 21. If you follow the work of Dr. Sala, if you look at where the money has come from, the trillions of dollars that have been flown into the black budgets to finance this orchestration of the changes that we face in the years ahead, and I'm afraid it's within a few years, are just incredible. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it's curious because I had the privilege of speaking with Gerard Arneson recently, and he speaks about the Space Brothers and his theories revolving around Benjamin Creme, and again, these entities that are here and observing and will interact with us when they feel it necessitates the point where we're at the brink of self-destruction or we're causing some type of harm to the planet or ourselves. So, what you're saying, I seem to be getting that common theme from a lot of people by speaking with them, that these entities are here to help us. Because you get a lot of this, I'll say, the BS that is portrayed through Hollywood and the media with all the fear-mongering when it comes to the alien subject matter. I mean, it sells, and it's also part of the disinformation campaign. It's also part of the fear to prevent disclosure, whatever the case may be. But my question to you specifically with safe space, do you think that we can one day live without borders and the threat of war and the geopolitical, social, economic, and religious indifference and intolerance? Do you think that we can get through all of this?
Absolutely. And I think we have to, because in my opinion, the human species is the most violent, the most deadly, and in many, many ways the most ignorant species because, we're fed propaganda, and you talked about fear-mongering, and certainly that is going on. But there are those, extraterrestrials or aliens or our brothers or sisters or call them whatever you will, because I think we're all pretty much aliens, If some of them will help. At some of the premieres we had for the Fast Walker film, there was a premiere in Phoenix and Toronto and New York and Hawaii and different places. We did have people in the audience stand up from the military and say that they were actually in missile silos when the ETs affected the launch systems and things like that. So from my standpoint, I've never had a problem with the ET abduction personally that was a negative, a malevolent thing, but I do know that many people have. So I think that we face both sides of the equation. I feel that there's those that are here that want to help us, and there's those of us that feel they want to help control and institute things along the lines. When we talk about Agenda 21, is your audience, Pat, familiar with the New World Order, the Illuminati agenda?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. We've definitely talked about it. I mean, everyone has a little different, a little different take on it. Some people, when you talk about Illuminati, I mean, I think there's some people that take it from strictly a governmental, if you will, a governmental financial gain, Robert. You know what I mean? It's strictly a group of rich people that make a lot of decisions and make a lot of money. But that's kind of where it starts and stops. But I mean, you can expound on any of those subjects.
Well, there's a tremendous amount of documentation that the roots of the Illuminati and the New World Order and all of the programs that are kind of an offshoot from that have a basic, they start from a point of control, and they start from a point of going back literally thousands and thousands of years, and that the return of this planet to more of the type of caste system that existed, during the Middle Ages, the lords and the serfs and the loss of liberty. What we saw in America was a wonderful explosion of opportunity that came, but that is rapidly changing. And it's our feeling that, the screws are being tightened, and Sala and Horowitz and some of these other people, and even the Georgia Guidestones, are suggesting that the population of the planet is going to be reduced down to about 500 million or perhaps a billion. And that's
population control.
Coincidentally, that's going to happen as a result of a direct extermination program that started already long ago. I mean, what are we doing with fluoride in our water? Fluoride is a poison. Fluoride was developed in Germany and used, what are we doing with fluoride in our water? What are we doing with chemtrails in our air? What are we doing with mercury in our vaccines? I mean, what are we doing with GMO foods? I mean, what's it all about, Alfie?
No, I think we definitely need, because the mainstream media isn't going to be the outlet to cover all these stories. I mean, we do need an outlet that'll cover all these subject topics, because, I mean, of course, you're going to have skeptics. You're going to have, when you mention chemtrails, you're going to have people that can believe it, don't believe it. I mean, but leave it up to the public to come to their own conclusions. At least put it out there so that the public can get an awareness of it. Because I was reading about I was looking at your site, Safe Space Project, and it was speaking about the Safe Space News Agency that's going to provide information that will cover the topics that mainstream media doesn't cover.
Yeah, we've tried to do that in most of our films and things. The world out there is changing so fast. When, back in '71, when I thought Columbia Pictures was going to do this major motion picture and we were going to get the information out, I felt like we could change the world probably within a few years. And now here it is 45 years later, and we're still talking about the same things. But what is amazing is that the more research you do, the more you discover that you didn't know about another part of it. We just did a open files called Alien Intervention with Travis Walton. We did an interview of Travis, so he's on there for about 35 minutes, and then Lieutenant Colonel Donald Ware, who is just an amazing guy that has opened up the doors and the windows to a whole nother level of information that has its roots in what he likes to call, he feels like most of the people on this planet are like third graders, and that there's a fourth grade level that is available for people on this planet to migrate to if they're willing to do the research and make the changes necessary in their life. And that's really what's going on. And he also has, we published a couple of books. One of them is The Man with the Golden Sword, and we did that with Don. And then we've just made available a couple of books on Atlantis. These are older stories that are coming out because people are bringing us information, but we've opened up the door to what's going on down in Antarctica and in South America. We've opened up the door into information about what's called New Berlin, about one of the things that's been ridiculed by the mainstream media, which is part of their tactic, of course, is the idea of civilizations within the inner Earth. And we're turning up information that there is a very advanced civilization with as many as millions of people living within the inner Earth. And there's a lot of credible facts and information if a person starts looking into it. So, and it all kind of ties together. It's exciting and it's worthwhile, but it's also frustrating because these days people are no longer buying books, people are no longer buying DVDs to speak of, and they want the information so fast. And that's, I guess, the solution to that are radio shows like yours, Pat.
That's true. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Fringe Radio Show. Tonight, our guest, Robert D. Miles. Robert, thank you so much for taking some time tonight, my friend, to be here with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having us as a guest. I wanted to just comment briefly about the mainstream media. Basically, everything that you're told is what has been approved for you to be told. That is so proven out by Hitler's escape to Argentina. The United States government and the Allied powers, meaning England, Canada, even Russia, all knew that Hitler was alive. They all knew that Hitler escaped to Argentina, and the FBI and under the Freedom of Information Act, they've actually released a bunch of the documents that the OSS and this, what was a precursor to the CIA, released telling exactly where Hitler was living with Eva Braun right after the war. And not only that, our government and the Roman Church helped 100,000 Germans migrate down to Argentina. And they were Nazis. And they were some of the top, the most heinous people. And all of this is documented. If a person wants to go in and look at Project Paperclip, where they came in they didn't just come in for our space program with von Braun. They came in with medical experimentation. They came in with financial controls. Trillions of dollars of money was flowed through the Swiss banks to support the changes in power and organization in Argentina and Central and South America through the Nazi Party, all for help financed by the Bushes and the banks. And, all of this stuff is there if a person wants to look and begin to realize that what you're being told by the mainstream media is basically what they want you to know and to believe.
Robert, you just mentioned the Catholic Church, and I have a question regarding that. When you said that, it kind of struck something that I've always thought about. I really have a true belief that this is factual, what I'm about to ask you. Do you think that the Vatican is aware of an alien existence, especially considering with all Pope Francis' recent comments, his remarks regarding alien intervention or visitation? And do you think that they're withholding evidence of ancient aliens in the Vatican vaults?
Okay, absolutely. We have that series of discs called Fast Walker's Open Files on Volume 4. We have Monsignor Caroldo Balducci. We have an interview there of him discussing extraterrestrials and coming right out and saying that they do exist. And he was the head. He wrote all of the books on demonology for the Pope. He held the highest positions in the Catholic Church as part of the Pontifical Council. And he was the first and the highest person in the Catholic Church to come out and say definitively on our video that there are extraterrestrials and that God's plan includes other planets and other systems. And absolutely, and is there proof of it? I would have to say I haven't seen the proof, so I can't say for sure there is, but I would bet every dollar that I have and don't have that, of course, there is.
You know what, though, Robert?
It's not just the Catholic Church. The roots of all the religions, if you study them and you look at them, you know, they indicate that there's been extraterrestrials, and Geraldo Balducci made it very plain that the ETs were not angels. They were individuals and societies and civilizations from other worlds.
Well, I am one to think that there are some indications in the Holy Scriptures, and a specific person of interest that I have spoken to in the past, I don't know if you're aware of him, Reverend Michael Carter. He's written books about the relation between alien visitation or visual encounters and in the Holy Scriptures. I am one that believes that Ezekiel is depicting a craft with creatures of alien origin. You know, I think there's a lot of evidence there. It's up to the person. Of course, it's all in the eye of the beholder. The person who's being objective and looking at this in a logical, rational. It's kind of ironic that you can have faith of a specific religion, but meanwhile, I am one that truly believes in the existence of aliens visiting our planet. I think there is an abundant amount of evidence, whether it's circumstantial, witness testimony. You have a lot of credible individuals who've come forward. And, you know, they have backgrounds. They have families. They have to worry about, they're coming out to provide all of this to the public. And I think that if it was presented in a court of law, you got to consider if with all the amount of credible witnesses and video or photography or depictions in paintings in our history or in caves, all this mounting evidence. Obviously, we don't have the smoking gun of a ship coming down, landing in Central Park. Okay, I get that. But, I mean, people have been convicted of crimes with less evidence.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't get over, like what you have, the Fast Walkers documentary, with all these people on it speaking about it, and meanwhile, it's ignored or even ridiculed and mocked.
Yeah. Well, that's all part of the mainstream media's approach to the whole thing. Pat, you wanted to talk about one of the books, the Lycandroids book?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Why don't I have Leslie come over? And she's very, very knowledgeable about the book, and she did all of the research that the book is based on from the standpoint of the factual or incredible side of it. And then I added the fictionalization and kind of tied it into an apocalyptic super soldier format, which kind of ties in. It's got UFOs in it. It's got ETs and all those other things as well. So we're wide open to taking your questions, about that book or about that project or concept. Dulcie's involved there. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure. You want to stick around, Bill?
You know what? I'm going to sit back and listen to her speak about this. And Robert, it was a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you. And Pat, I'll speak to you soon. Have a great night.
Okay, take care, my friend.
Thanks very much. And on the website, there's a lot of links there that you can check out and get information on timestreampictures.com.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Take care, Bill.
I want to introduce my co-producer and fiance, Leslie Mitt. And Leslie was a state of Tennessee MUFON. Leslie, why don't you go ahead and speak just briefly about your experience? Yeah.
Well, as he was getting ready to say, I was formerly with MUFON. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, not proud of that this day and age. I was acting state director for MUFON some years ago, and I'd also had experience with Grays, and that was back before there were any books written on the subject. I used to ask people, what was the strangest thing that had ever happened to them, hoping I would come across people that had seen the same thing I had. And it wasn't until the book Communion came out and I saw the cover of the book, I knew I wasn't the only one that had seen that. So that's why I got interested in this whole arena of UFOs, ETs, and related cryptids, and the whole general
Sure.
all game things. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
So you were part. You did I hear your comment right? You were part of MUFON, but didn't like MUFON.
Oh, initially I was sucked in like a lot of people, but once you're in it and you see it from the inside, or the level I was, and a lot of people I talked to, basically it's just an information gathering organization, and they don't give that much information back to the actual members. And some people are just not as trained as you'd think they would be. They shouldn't be doing this investigation work. I was highly disillusioned, particularly when Walt Andrus sent a guy up to Tennessee to take over as state director who had just joined MUFON. He didn't know anything about UFOs or ETs or anything. I had to basically educate him on it. And it turned out he was using MUFON as a recruiting device for Scientology. And he wound up having a very strange death after he was bringing guns to like MUFON meetings and scaring people to death. And Walt Andrus knew about all that. He thought it was just fine. A lot of the people that were in MUFON in Tennessee left the whole organization because they thought this guy was crazy. They also became very disillusioned. So that's just one reason why I'm not real big on MUFON anymore.
Well, I know that I don't know if you're aware of Elaine Douglas from Utah. She was part of MUFON, and I know that there's I'm not on the either side of the fence on this one, Leslie. I just know that I think there's been some changes for the good, but I heard that there was a lot of bad inner working politics for such a long time.
Yeah, really pretty much from the beginning, all the way up to currently, as far as I know.
Really?
And the whole funding and the information flow, even with their existing structure, is very suspect. I mean, but let's talk about lichen droids.
Sure. Go ahead.
That's a very real creature. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a sci-fi creature, and honestly, when I first heard about it, someone told me about it and asked if I would investigate all these people who are disappearing in the state parks and national forests, and that they believed that this creature was behind it. And they were basically calling it a werewolf, and I really thought it was a joke. I mean, I was laughing. I thought they had to be kidding me. But it turns out, the werewolf is the closest thing anybody can visualize that is like this creature. And I was noticing that there have been a lot of unexplained disappearances in all the state parks and national forests. And then I found, of course, David Paulides had already done
sure
research, so I left that to him. He's way and above anybody else on that topic. So I really am not so sure that the lichen creatures are behind what's causing all of these disappearances, but I know they are an extremely, extremely dangerous creature. Anybody that's ever encountered them have experienced extreme fear and danger, and we believe there have been certain deaths attributed to these creatures. And they appear to be not only all over the United States, Canada, all the way down into South America. They've been reported not only in all of Britain, but Europe and other countries. So it appears to be a worldwide creature. And it's really kind of interesting to me that not much has been heard of this creature until just very recent times. And I hadn't really been too heavily into cryptids, just, Bigfoot and a few things like that. But still, I was really surprised there was something like that out there that I had not heard of. But having done a lot of research into it and talked to a lot of people who have seen them, and I've seen pictures of them even. And I really believe that they're interdimensional creatures, because I have seen pictures and video of them actually appearing, and then suddenly they're just here. It's like they're coming in out of like a fog. And they first appear with their heads, and then the bodies appear, and there they are. So I think they're interdimensional creatures. But I really don't know why they're coming here, and I really am not so sure how long they've been coming here, because there have been legends about this going way back in history. So I'm wondering if, like, have they been here just like, you know, here and there over time, and now all of a sudden recently there's just a lot of them coming in, and I don't really know why. So, you know, we're still trying to gather information from people who have seen them or heard anything about them from a friend, just trying to gather all the information we can. And we do have a Facebook page that's, you know, Like Androids, Super Soldiers, No Freedom More. If anybody will post anything there or on my Facebook page, I'll repost it over. It's just basically an instant information sharing so that people will know what is going on with this creature in real time, rather than waiting for a book to come out. Because really, if you're planning on going out, you know, hunting, fishing, camping, or whatever, you don't really have time, safety-wise, to wait on another book to come out. You need up-to-the-minute information.
Right. Well, you know, and it does, the interest here, especially here, Leslie, is, of course, we've got the infamous Skinwalker Ranch. And
Yeah.
I've heard that term also associated with, you know, what goes on in the Uinta Basin. Dog-like creatures, wolf dog type creatures that people have shot at with very high-powered rifles, because they were in fear that, you know, one of these things would invade their camping area, or they didn't want to encounter it, and fire at this thing multiple times, and it just takes the hits and keeps on going. And then, of course, they talk about portals opening up, and in some cases, these wolf-type creatures coming through the portals.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that whole area, that ranch, appears to be some kind of a portal for things coming through from either one other dimension or perhaps multiple dimensions. And I don't know why that place would be, but there do appear to be other portals around, and I think I've experienced one here in Tennessee also. So it's kind of hard to know where you're going to come across a portal and why they happen to be in that particular place.
Well, and even Linda Godfrey, who writes about these different creatures up in Wisconsin. Guys, I got to take an NBC News break. Can we keep you for another hour?
Oh, sure.